In the glass towers of global finance, numbers dance on screens like spirits in the wind. Fortunes rise and fall in milliseconds. And behind those flickering digits, behind every trade, every bet, every hedge, is a human being. This is the story of Kweku Adoboli, the man who went from trusted insider at UBS, one of the world's most powerful investment banks, to being branded a rogue trader, the face of a $2.3 billion financial catastrophe that shook the core of modern banking. Born in Ghana, raised in the United Kingdom, groomed in elite schools, and hired into the upper echelons of global finance, Kweku wasn't just another trader. He was smart, fast, and aggressive. Too aggressive. But this isn't just a story of a man and a number. It's a story about systemic greed, about a culture of pressure, about targets that crushed ethics, and compliance rules broken in plain sight, until someone had to pay the price. From late-night trades and high-frequency risks, to the cold metal bars of a prison cell, this documentary uncovers how one trader, driven by ambition and trapped by the very system that empowered him, brought down one of the most respected banks in the world, and how the bank let it happen. We dive deep into the back-office failings, risk management lapses, and corporate double standards that made this disaster possible. Was Adoboli a criminal mastermind, or a scapegoat for a banking culture gone off the rails? And when it was over, when the headlines died down and the courtroom doors closed, Adoboli faced something even more brutal than a prison sentence: deportation. A man who had called Britain home for decades, ripped from his community, his career, and his life. This is not just another financial scandal. This is the human cost of unchecked capitalism, the consequences of silence in the face of toxic systems, and what happens when institutions protect their reputation at any cost. Before we dive into the story proper, I want to use two medium to say thank you to my subscribers and returning subscribers for your support towards the growth of this channel. And if you are a new person, please subscribe, drop a comment, like and share to encourage this channel, as I bring in new financial crime documentary every week to your doorsteps, in the heart of London's financial machine, where billions flash across screens and risk is just another line on a spreadsheet. A young trader pulled off one of the most catastrophic financial disasters in British history. His name? Kweku Adoboli. He lost £2.3 billion in unauthorized trades at UBS. But ask him today, and he won't tell you he was a villain. He'll tell you, he was a product of a broken system. Kweku Adoboli was born in Ghana but raised across continents, Middle East, the UK, and beyond, his father a respected UN official. At 12, Kweku was shipped to a British boarding school. He wasn't just an outsider, he was one of a handful of black kids in a sea of privilege, but Kweku was sharp, polished, eloquent. The kind of kid you bet on. He climbed the ladder, studied at the University of Nottingham, and in 2003, fresh-faced, idealistic, he landed at Swiss banking giant UBS. He started at the bottom, back-office grunt work, but by 2006, he moved into the Delta One desk, a high-risk division trading complex exchange-traded funds. Here's the thing about Delta One. It's the kind of place where you either make millions or disappear trying. And Kweku? He was hungry. He wanted to matter. Kweku Adoboli learned the game fast. The pressure was brutal. The rewards? Even better. The more risk you took, the more money you made, for UBS, and for yourself. But the lines between what was legal, acceptable, and insane. Blurry at best. He started tweaking spreadsheets, hiding losses, and creating fictitious hedges, so-called off-book trades using an internal UBS mechanism called the umbrella account. It wasn't some Ocean's 11 heist, it was a slow drift, the first unauthorized trade. Maybe he thought he'd clean it up next week. The second? Just to cover the first. And before you know it, it's billions. By mid-2011, he was moving massive volumes, £30, £50 billion a day, and no one noticed. Not the compliance department, not risk control, no one, until they did. On September 14, 2011, UBS compliance flagged some irregularities. They walked into Adoboli's office, and then, he confessed, "I take full responsibility," he told them. It was me. The next day, he was arrested. UBS lost £2.3 billion. Their share price tanked. The public was furious. And suddenly, Adoboli wasn't a high-flying trader, he was the rogue scapegoat, but let's not forget, he wasn't the first. And he wouldn't be the last. In 2012, Adoboli stood trial. The prosecution painted him as arrogant, manipulative, and reckless, a gambler playing with other people's money. The defense? They said UBS created the monster. That the culture rewarded risk without oversight. That he was pressured to keep profits high at all costs. Kweku admitted what he did was wrong. But he wasn't alone. He was convicted of 2 counts of fraud and sentenced to 7 years. UBS. No fines. No top executive demoted. The system got what it wanted. A headline, "One man to blame." Adoboli served nearly 4 years. While inside, he studied. Reflected. Spoke about reforming finance. When he walked out, he didn't vanish. But then came a new nightmare, the Home Office. Despite spending nearly 26 years in the UK, despite his roots, his work, his life, Kweku had never applied for British citizenship. He was a foreign national with a criminal record. That meant deportation. A nationwide campaign erupted. Academics. Lawyers. Activists. His MP journalists. Even school kids from his alma mater, they said the deportation was racist, selective. Cruel. He was more British than Ghanaian. How do you deport someone who is home?
It's been such a tough journey the last 7 years, 7.5 years, that the violent way in which it ended meant that as I was coming back to the country, all I wanted to do was to get home to my family.
You mean the removal process?
The removal process, yes. It was remarkably violent and completely unnecessary. And whilst on the one hand, it made me realize why it was so important for us to fight as hard as we did to ensure that I wasn't deported. On the other hand, it made me realize that this fight has done a lot of damage to a lot of people. The vision of violence that we have seen, the vision of state violence that we have seen, has taught us so much. So when I got home yesterday, it felt like I was free for the first time in 7 years.
Wow. The last time I met you,
yes,
you were in deportation.
Yes.
Okay, very close to Heathrow.
Yeah, of course, yes. You met me in the detention center in Harmondsworth. And at that stage, we were close to deportation, but we'd achieved a stay on the removal.
Yes.
And we were applying for a judicial review for the judges to consider whether or not the way the Home Office, the UK Home Office had made its decision was right, was lawful. So they allowed me out on bail. So about a month ago, just over a month ago, they released me on bail. Then I was on bail, we had the judicial review hearing. They actually used the court as a way to manipulate the story in order that the final reckoning would be that I'm a dishonest person and that I am in some ways incapable of redemption, and that the judge literally said that I was dishonest about my dishonesty and therefore I should be deported and never given the chance to make a claim as to why I should be allowed to remain in the UK.
That was pretty serious.
It's incredibly harsh because there was no evidence whatsoever to support that position. In fact, 3 judges before him who'd assessed the evidence had said that actually my contributions to the UK since my release from prison have been in the public interest. Now, what we think is that the UK government realized that the only way they could convince the Ghanaian government to accept my deportation was to ensure that there were no more legal avenues for me to contest against the decision in the UK, which is very gracious of the Ghanaian government. However, what the UK government did was manipulate that process to ensure that there was no possibility for a legal avenue, a legal resolution. And then once they'd done that piece of work through the upper tribunal, Judge Ockleton in the upper tribunal, they then put me back in detention this Monday when I went to report.
What happened then from Monday?
So on Monday I reported, they put me in a van, and I'm sorry, I'm really hot, so I'm
I mean, you're sweating quite a bit, and we can excuse you.
I'm not used to the temperature. It's a 20-degree temperature change.
I know, so yeah, we can excuse
forgive me. They put me in a van immediately. They drove me from Glasgow, where I went to report, all the way down to Harmondsworth, 9 hours in a van with 2 escorts.
Glasgow, that's Scotland.
In Scotland. So I lived in Scotland. So since my release from prison, I've been living in Scotland with 2 friends and their 2 sons who are my godsons. So they drove me all the way down to Harmondsworth and then detained me in the same detention center where we met about 6 weeks ago. Now, on Tuesday, my Member of Parliament, Hannah Bardell, who has done an incredible job trying to convince both the Immigration Minister, Caroline Noakes, and Sajid Javid, the UK Home Secretary, that there were good reasons not to deport me. She did a great job of explaining to them, look, there are 75,000 people who've signed this petition not to deport him. There are 138 MPs and MSPs who are backing, who have signed this open letter not to deport him. There are countless media celebrities and high-profile people, as well as the public, who are all saying, don't deport him, don't deport him. So she had asked for a meeting with Caroline Noakes, the Immigration Minister. That meeting happened on Tuesday evening, around 5 o'clock. They spoke for an hour and a half. What I've been told is that at the end of that meeting, at which also present were Keith Vaz MP, who is a Labour MP, and Sir Peter Bottomley MP, who is a Conservative MP. So a cross-party group of parliamentarians speaking to Caroline Noakes on my behalf, saying, look, he has a contribution to make. He has been redeemed. He has, he is remorseful.
You've served your time.
He served his time. He's not a criminal anymore. Why are we deporting him? Let's not deport him. This is literally the argument that they were making to Caroline Noakes. On top of that, we had prepared a document that showed that the Home Office has broken the law over 85 times in this process in the effort to deport me. It's so hard to deport someone, or even though they can make the rules themselves, they still have to break their own rules in order to achieve a deportation. So Hannah Bardell went and showed them, look, these are all the times that the Home Office has manipulated the process unlawfully to achieve this deportation. You need to consider this again. Now what I'm told is that Caroline Noakes went away and said to her before she went, look, you've done a really great job of making his case. I'm going to go away and reflect. Unfortunately, we don't know why. As well as that, Caroline Noakes said, in any event, the deportation is not necessarily imminent, right? So
and this is the Immigration Minister.
This is the Minister for Immigration. And she's basically saying, look, we're going to consider it properly. It's not going to happen that soon anyway. That's the message that came back to us on Tuesday evening. On Wednesday morning, I spoke to Hannah Bardell myself, and she called and she said, look, we've received a letter. The letter was written last night, just 1 hour after the meeting.
That's strange.
Very strange.
Because you hear the minister saying one thing, and then this letter also communicates something else.
Correct. And it suggests that the minister, I mean, this thing is all clearly, the deportation must have been in hand. They must have already made the preparations in order for me to be able to get on a flight.
So they probably were just telling you something.
Well, we don't know. Perhaps she was just telling us something, or perhaps what happened was she put a call into whoever it is that she needs to call, whether it's Sajid Javid or Theresa May. You know, they're going through this turmoil over Brexit right now, but who knows who she called, but she must have called someone and gone, you know what, actually, maybe we need to look at this. Either that or yes, she was lying. We don't really know.
All right.
But either way, within 1 hour of the meeting, after all that information had been shared, a letter was written saying, sorry, he's got to go. We've assessed our decision and we are satisfied that the UK Home Office has made the right decision to deport Kweku. I had this call with Hannah at 10 o'clock. I was speaking to my lawyer around 1 o'clock. So at 1 o'clock, they lock you back in your cell. I was speaking to my lawyer. All of a sudden, boom, boom, door knocks. They open the door. 6 people rush into the room with a camera. Mr. Adoboli, pack your things. You're being removed from the UK. Boom, just like that. So I was like, Jackie, I think it's happening right now. I'm just going to hang up the call. Okay? So I hang up the call. I say, what do you need me to do? They say, you need to pack your things. So I say, okay, can you tell me flight details? I need to know where we're traveling from, where we're traveling to, when I will arrive in Ghana. What is the route? And on what document are you transferring me? You don't have my passport. So on what document are you transporting me? The people in the room said, we don't know. We're going to hand you over to the transfer team. They will tell you. Okay, so I pack my stuff, put my bag, get marched out by these 6 people, one of them with the camera, reminding me not to be violent the whole time. Because if you use force, we will use force. That's what they keep telling you. So it's a very violent process. We arrive at the men who are now going to carry me on the plane and across. And I get handed over to them. Again, I ask them, what's the route? What travel document? When will I arrive in Ghana? We don't have that information. As soon as we do know, we will tell you. They search me. I sign. The only document I sign is a document for my particulars, my valuables and my property. That's
with the detention center.
With the detention center. So I signed this document to hand it over. Then they put me in a van. There's like 8 people in the van, right? Just for little old me. And we drive.
You're not so little.
Okay, maybe not so little, but maybe that's what they were scared of, who knows. Anyway, we get to the security in Heathrow. It's a special security area. I think 4 or 5 security people search my baggage and my clothes, strip search, etc. It's really, really undignified. Really, really demoralizing. And it's a process, I think, that's designed to show you who you are. You're not worthy of being part of this country. Literally just taking away all your dignity. It was just mortifying. Remember, even by this point, nobody knows what's happening apart from Jackie. I've not been able to call anyone.
And especially, your family, if you're being deported, they should be at the airport at least to receive you.
Well, definitely my family here in Ghana need to be ready so that they can come and meet me. So I need to tell them. Plus, remember, they're worried too. They're thinking about what's happening too. And my family in the UK, my partner, my friends, etc., they also need to be able to travel and understand conceptually what's happening. Human beings, we need to know what's happening to each other, even if we're separated by distance. We need to be able to conceptualize each other. So if I'm not able to share with you the information of what's happening to me, your anxiety about it goes up. Okay? So this is what's going on. The whole time I'm asking them, give me some information so I can give to my lawyers and my friends and my family. Nothing. We don't have that information. After security, we get back in the van. They drive to Heathrow. We drive around Heathrow, past Terminal 5, past Terminal 4, get to the actual tarmac where the airplanes are, and they park in between 2 planes. Kuwaiti Airlines on one side, Royal Air Maroc on the other side. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I mean, it was a beautiful evening. The sun was setting. I was like, oh, what a day to leave the UK. This was going through my mind. My heart is really heavy. And the Kuwaiti Airlines plane goes. So I assume now they must be taking me on the Royal Air Maroc. So I say, listen, come on, let me call someone and tell them what's happening because they're worried. So I call Pippa, I call Alice, and I call my lawyer and I say, look.
Did you have your phone or you had to request for your phone?
So I had to request for my phone. They confiscated my phone. So I was like, please, listen, we've now been going through this process for 3 hours or so. Please give me my phone so I can call. So I call them and I say, this is what is happening. And I tell Pippa, look, we're sat on the tarmac next to Royal Air Maroc, so maybe that's the flight. And so she goes online and checks the departure time of Royal Air Maroc. And it turns out that that's leaving at 5:10, and there's a connection through Casablanca to Accra that arrives at 2:20 a.m. on Thursday morning. That's the idea. So Pips was like, well, that kind of makes sense. It must be that.
Okay, so probably that's how come we got the information. Initial information was that you were coming on board an Air Maroc.
Correct. And then all of a sudden, they come in and they go, you can't use your phone anymore. Give us your phone. We're confiscating it because the information the information that you've told your friends has now reached social media and the media in general.
All right.
Therefore, it's endangering the flight. We're taking the phone from you. So they take the phone from me, and then as soon as they take the phone, they say, right, we're on the move. Close the door, put your seatbelt on, and then we drive around the airport.
So you leave the
Royal Air Maroc. We go to the Kenya Airways flight and park next to the Kenya Airways flight. And suddenly I realized what they'd done was basically used me to get the information out. Misinformation.
About the Royal Air Maroc.
Yes.
And then they take you on.
Correct. So they wanted to give misinformation.
And divert attention.
Correct. It seems that they were worried. They were so ashamed, in a sense, of what they were doing. They were worried that the protest would reach the airplane and they wouldn't be able to remove me, right? So they used misinformation. They used me to trick the world because they knew I would tell my friends and family, right? So they were so, even at that moment, they were so obsessed with policy and practice that they forgot that there is a human being that is being deported, and that is a violent process, and that human being is connected to hundreds, if not thousands, of other human beings all over the world, right? They are so obsessed. The UK Home Office is a rogue institution. It is so obsessed with achieving policy and practice goals that it has completely forgotten that there are human beings.
The rights of the individual.
Completely forgotten that there are human beings involved in this process. It is unbelievably inhumane.
Okay, so they get you onto the plane.
So to get you on the plane, what they do is they, take off your seatbelt, get out the plane, and then remember, at this point, there's 5 guards that are escorting you. 5 people are going to escort you halfway around the world. So one of them, it's very, very physical. These are big people. One of them grabs one arm like this. The other one grabs the other hand. And one comes from behind, puts his hand just in the small of your back. They squeeze into you, then they march you up the back steps. So everyone has entered the front of the plane through the gangway. I get marched up very, very fast up the back of the plane into the back of the plane. And then the 2 back rows in the center are for us. So they stick me in the middle of 3. One man stands to my right, another man stands to my left, 3 across the front. There's a lady involved as well. So the other 3 stand in front. So now they're creating a shield so no one can see me. And I'm saying to them, listen, you need to let me call my lawyers. You need to let me call my parents. You need to let me call my girlfriend because they don't know what's happening. They don't know that I'm getting this Kenya Airways flight. The flight is about to go. Tell me. They're like, don't worry, we'll let you call. So at this point, I started to become very, very anxious, really agitated, because effectively, all I wanted to do was say goodbye. To say, just look, I'm sorry. I mean, I know the plane is about to go in 5 minutes. I just want to say goodbye. but they wouldn't let me. And I was like, I need to tell my dad because he needs to prepare to come and meet me. Please let me use the phone. So my voice starts to rise and I start to get quite loud. The other passengers start to look. And at this moment, they realize if they don't give me the phone, it's going to become a problem. So they give me the phone and say, okay, call your dad. It's 5 minutes before the plane goes. So I call my dad really quickly. I'm sorry, Dad. The plane is about to leave. We're going via Kenya Airlines. We'll arrive in Accra about, 11:15 on Thursday in the morning.
So these 5 guys are with you on the plane?
Yes, so 5 people, 1 woman, 4 men. They sit with me the whole way, all the way to Nairobi. We change. They get on the flight from Nairobi to Accra. They fly to Accra. They get me to Accra, and then that's where they leave me. But 5 people to transport 1 human being like a piece of cargo. And their job is literally to show you physically that at no stage should you try and interfere with this process. Before we got on the plane, they came in and they said, listen, this information that we gave you got onto social media. Are you preparing to be violent on the plane? Are you preparing to disrupt the flight? Because let us warn you, the pilot has agreed no matter what happens, he's going to take you. And I said, look, I'm not a violent person. I've never been violent in my life. So then they said, well, are you going to be vocal? Because if you're vocal, that's still causing a disruption. We will be forced to use force. I was like, listen, I just want to get home in a dignified way. That's why I offered to leave myself once the legal process was done.
Well, you actually offered to leave?
We offered the Home Office. We said to them, look, once the legal process is complete, if it is not successful, we are happy I'll buy my own ticket, I'll get on a plane, and I will fly myself. Because I do not want this undignified exit. Give us more time, and I will fly myself. I'll say goodbye properly, and I'll fly myself. Literally. I told them that in an email. My lawyer told them that in an email. I even said it on the radio last Saturday. And yet, they wanted to have this happen on that day. I don't know why, but they forced it. So what happened was, because of what they'd done to misinform us about the flight, and because I was constantly asking for the details of the flight but not getting it, I started to mistrust them. So for the first 2 hours of the flight, I just sat there crying, because I hadn't been able to speak properly to anyone, just crying. And then luckily, this is completely by fluke, there was a delegation of MPs traveling to Nairobi to do a 3-day piece of analysis on migration and environmental change and the economy in both Nairobi and in Ethiopia. So one of those was an S&P MP, a guy called Chris Law, who is friends with Hannah Bardell, my MP. So somehow they got a message to Chris that I was on the same plane, and he got in touch with the escorts, these bounty hunters. My girlfriend calls them bounty hunters. He got a message to them through the staff, and eventually, around 4 hours into the flight, he came and I stood with him in the back of the plane, and we talked for about 2 hours. And it was that moment where I started to feel like a human being again. So now I feel like a human. I'm speaking to someone about issues that I think are important for all of us. He's being just so kind and so human, and saying he disagrees with the process, and reminding me that even though I'm being sent to Ghana, there's work that we can all do together between the global south and the west.
All right.
It's not about escaping punishment. I served my time. This is about being treated as a human being. But in 2018, the Home Office won. He was snatched from his home, detained, and deported to Ghana. In Ghana, he was met with cameras, love, confusion. Some called him arrogant. Others called him brave, but his message stayed the same: Ghana is home. But so is the UK. No one should be forced to choose. He ate his first meal back, banku and palm nut soup, surrounded by family. But he wasn't done, not even close. Kweku Adoboli was just one man, but the system that built him, still alive. Still rewarding risk. Still scapegoating the vulnerable, UBS recovered. The market moved on, but we're still left with questions that don't go away. Why do we only jail the traitor, but not the system that trained him? Why is justice only blind when it's convenient? And how many more Kwekus will it take before we admit, the real rogue is the system? The headlines painted him as a villain, the system painted him as a cautionary tale, but behind every scandal, is a man. And behind that man, is a broken system. After serving his sentence, Kweku Adoboli faced exile. Not because he was a danger to society, but because, in the eyes of the law, he was never truly British. He had lived in the UK for over 26 years, paid taxes, contributed to the economy, and still, the Home Office deported him. Why? Because scandal must always have a face. And institutions must always protect their image, but this story doesn't end with a prison cell. Since his return to Ghana, Kweku has spoken out about ethics in finance, racial injustice in immigration law, and the need for structural reform in global banking. He's become a voice, not for the rich, but for the unheard. For the broken pieces of a system we pretend is working, his case has inspired petitions, legislation, and global debate. And though he may never return to the place he once called home, his fight is far from over. So what should we take from this? That rogue traders don't just act alone, that greed doesn't just wear one face, and that justice in the world of high finance is a luxury rarely served. If you've learned something today, remember, behind every billion-dollar loss, behind every collapsed empire, there's a human story that the headlines never tell. Like, comment, share and subscribe, because here at The Ledger, we don't just follow the money, we follow the truth. We bring you the documentary stories they'd rather you forgot.